started our trip south after hanging around for about 5 days above 58 degrees latitude. With any luck at all, sometime about 11 months from now, we should be somewhere around 18 degrees north. Southeast Alaska's islands are laid out perfectly for a circular cruise with new stuff to see the whole way. From Juneau, we sailed west to the entrance of Glacier Bay and Icy Strait. We decided that we didn't have time to see Glacier Bay, so this is as close as we got. We fueled up and went for a walk in Hoona.
We're in Hoona, Alaska, on the search for eggs.
We spent a night with a humpback whale in a quiet anchorage with views to the icy giants of the St. Elias Range. And then we turned south.
We're having a great sail, but it's been a lot of work. We've had sails up, sails down, sails back up, change of sails. We're never quite sure what Chatham Strait is going to give us, but at the moment, it's a nice sail. We've still got a few hours to go to our destination, and it's summer finally. It's hot.
It's almost time to take that spinnaker down. There's only 3 reasons the spinnaker comes down. Either the wind goes up and you end up with too much, or the wind goes down and there's none at all, or you arrive at your destination. The third thing almost never happens. This one's going to be a case of too much wind. The trip south down Chatham Strait had a different flavor than our trip north to Juneau. The weather was better, the islands more rugged, and we saw more wildlife. The first place we stopped was a spot called Pavlov Harbor. This seems to be the way it goes. Either it's blowing half a gale, or we're just ghosting along. At least the sailing's been mostly downwind, which is much easier than beating upwind. Some cruising books advocate leaving a spinnaker at home. I'm not entirely sure I would ever contemplate such a thing. Actually, I am sure I would never contemplate such a thing. If we didn't have the spinnaker, we'd probably be sailing half as much as we currently are. This is definitely too little wind to be sailing under just the regular working sails. And that bright, ugly thing, at least I think it's ugly because it's been tie-dyed, and who puts orange with red anyways? That bright, ugly thing's dragged us many, many miles, and apparently it's built to take a storm, so it'll drag us many more. We're heading almost due south right now. That's the view back up Chatham Strait. That's Chichagof Island. That's the pass between Chichagof and Baranof Island. That leads out to the Pacific Ocean and to a town called Sitka. And there's Baranof Island. Hopefully tomorrow I'll get some better light so I can take pictures of the peaks. Baranof is very rugged. I'd rather have the wind behind us, but a good beat and flat conditions is still lots of fun. This is perfect. There's about 13 knots of wind and the waves are really small. There's the odd one that kind of puts a little spray in the deck, but overall the boat's just going right through them. Really, really fun. We're pulling into a place called Warm Springs Cove. And as the name suggests, there's supposed to be some hot springs there, a dock, and a little village. There was lots of room on the dock in Warm Springs Bay, but the boats were spaced so far apart that none of it was usable. So we ended up here, which is about a mile away and really pretty. These are the homes in Warm Springs Bay. I have no idea what the population is here in the summertime or the wintertime. But Alaska keeps surprising me with how many places there are that people live. So I wouldn't be shocked at all to find out people spend the whole year here. A few anyways. We're walking up to the lake at Baranof Warm Springs, and it's a short walk, but really, really nice. Tons of cool boardwalks, and the forest is gorgeous, and I bet you we get a nice view as soon as we come to the lake. That's the hot pool at Baranof Warm Springs, which is an odd name for a place that has a hot pool. This pool is hot.
We're about to have a bath in our private bathing facilities here at Warm Springs Cove.
So obviously the bath is being fed by the warm water from the hot springs, and then there's also cold water that's being plumbed in, so you don't have to cook yourself to have a bath.
Yesterday was a highlight day for sure. We had a beat into Warm Springs Cove, but we only had to tack once, so that's pretty good. Anchored in a gorgeous spot because the dock was full, but there was a big boat running his generator full time anyway, so I'm not sorry. Our spot was beautiful. Then we had a gorgeous walk to the lake on this beautiful trail with all these complicated boardwalks and alpine scenery, basically at sea level. Then we went into the hottest hot spring I've ever sat in. I managed to get in up to my waist. That was as far as I could go, right beside a waterfall. Explored a lagoon, gorgeous waterfall. What an amazing day.
We left Warm Springs Bay this morning pretty early, 8 o'clock. Catch the tide. The currents in the strait are pretty crazy, up to 2.5 knots, and we haven't really managed to catch them right yet, but we're doing all right so far this morning. It's still behind us, and we've got another northerly. This is the third one we've had since we left Vancouver, and they've all been timed perfectly for us to go south, which is pretty good. And the scenery, well, I'm running out of superlatives because it's always crazy good. Baranof Island in particular. The boat's moving really nicely. We have 15 knots off the starboard quarter, and we're flying just plain sails, the white sails. After that crazy spinnaker takedown. Yet another crazy spinnaker takedown. I think the crazy spinnaker takedowns are why some people don't like flying their spinnaker. The trick to managing them is always fly your main, so that you have a place to put the spinnaker when it's got too much wind. You just blanket the spinnaker with the main and it collapses. And the second one is have an agreed upon hard cutoff line, where at the very minimum you, like as far as wind speed, where at the very minimum you start talking about taking it down. Ours is 12 knots, and it used to be hard. It just came down to 12 knots, but we've been tricked the last few days, and so we're starting to fly at higher winds. And that might be a mistake that comes back to bite us. Today we were flying it in 16 knots, and the boat felt in control, but it was going too fast. Those rugged mountains in the background are the mountains above Red Bluff Bay, which is where we're heading for today. Many people say it's the most spectacular spot in Southeast Alaska. After all the spectacular spots we've seen so far, I find that hard to believe, but I'm looking forward to being proven wrong. We're approaching the entrance to Red Bluff Bay. We got the sails out, one on each side, which is called wing on wing. And we'll take them down probably in 5 or 6 minutes, at least the foresail, and then start motoring up the passage. It looks like it's quite a ways up into the actual anchorage here, and I think it's going to end up being right below that peak in the background. And of course in the foreground here you can see the namesake of the bay, the big red bluff. Red Bluff Bay did not disappoint. It is amazing here, stunning scenery. And it's also, I think, going to be the last evening of the 3 boats having dinner together. We're going south down the west side of Prince of Wales Island, and the other 2 boats are going back into the inside, down Chatham Strait towards Ketchikan. So, last party of the trip, for now.